The offices of Apex Marketing were a testament to aggressive, self-assured success, located on the 34th floor of a gleaming downtown skyscraper. The space was a symphony of polished concrete, glass walls, and minimalist furniture that cost more than a car. The air itself seemed to hum with a high-strung, competitive energy, fueled by espresso and ambition. Everyone was young, sharp, and dressed in the latest, trendiest armor of the corporate world. Into this arena walked Anna, a quiet woman in her late 50s, looking as out of place as a sparrow in a flock of peacocks. Her clothes were simple, sensible, and drab, a gray cardigan over a plain white blouse. Her shoes were comfortable flats, a cardinal sin in this office of stilettos and Italian leather loafers. Her face was kind, lined with the faint traces of a life lived, and her demeanor was one of polite, nervous deference. She was, by all appearances, a woman forced back into the workforce by unfortunate circumstances, a relic from a bygone era of typewriters and carbon paper. She was shown to a small, cramped desk in the corner, a sort of administrative no-man's land between the marketing department and the pantry. From this humble vantage point, she had a perfect view of the office's central hub, the domain of its king, Marcus Thorne. Marcus made his entrance at precisely 9:05 a.m., not by walking, but by striding. He was handsome in a severe, clean-shaven way, his suit impeccably tailored, his watch a subtle signal of immense expense. He clapped his hands, a sound as sharp and commanding as a gunshot. "Huddle up. Team, huddle up," he called out, his voice booming with the unshakable confidence of a man who had never had a moment of self-doubt. The young marketers scurried from their desks to form a semicircle around him, their faces a mixture of admiration and fear. Marcus's eyes scanned the group and then landed on Anna, a flicker of something between amusement and annoyance in his gaze. "Ah, yes," he said, gesturing towards her. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Anna. She's our new office coordinator." He said the title as if he'd just invented it. "Anna is rejoining the workforce after a very long sabbatical. So I expect you all to be very patient as she gets up to speed with how things work in the 21st century." The word patient was dripped in condescension. He was not asking for their kindness. He was announcing her incompetence. A few of the younger, more sycophantic employees smirked. Anna simply nodded, a faint, polite smile on her face. "It's a pleasure to be here," she said softly. Her first tasks were a litany of menial indignities. Marcus had her make a fresh pot of coffee, then publicly chided her for using the wrong brand of beans. He handed her a mountain of documents to be scanned and collated, asking in a loud, carrying voice, "You've used a multifunction scanner before, right? Dear, we don't want to break the new toy." He had her sort his mail, book his lunch reservations, and arrange his dry cleaning pickup. He treated her not as an employee, but as a personal servant. And he did it all with a patronizing smile that made it clear he was enjoying her humiliation. The other employees quickly took their cue from their boss. To them, Anna was invisible. They would walk past her desk without a glance, drop files onto it without a word, and speak around her as if she were a piece of furniture. She was the office ghost, the charity case, the drab, middle-aged woman who served as a walking reminder of what failure looked like in their fast-paced world. But the woman they saw as a ghost was, in reality, a hunter, and she was observing everything. While she was quietly sorting mail, she was actually analyzing the company's cash flow through its invoices. While she was making coffee, she was listening to the hushed, fearful conversations between the junior staff. While she was struggling with the complexities of the photocopier, she was reading the marketing proposals left on its scanner bed. She saw the raw, unfiltered reality of the company she had built from afar. She saw the brilliant ideas of junior employees being stolen by their managers. She saw the toxic, fear-based culture Marcus had cultivated, where loyalty was rewarded over talent and backstabbing was a survival skill. She saw the immense waste, the inefficient workflows, and the terrible morale hidden behind the sleek, glass-walled facade. At the end of the day, long after everyone else had rushed off to trendy bars or expensive gyms, Anna was alone in the silent office. She finished wiping down the gleaming espresso machine in the pantry, a task one of the senior marketers had asked her to do. She walked through the darkened, cavernous space, her sensible shoes making no sound on the polished concrete floor. She stopped at the massive floor-to-ceiling window in Marcus Thorne's corner office for a long moment. She looked down at the city lights sprawling below, a glittering kingdom of wealth and power. It was her kingdom. He just didn't know it yet. A small, determined smile touched her lips. The queen had successfully infiltrated the castle, disguised as a scullery maid, and she was already taking notes on how to clean house. Weeks bled into a month, and the role of Anna became a second skin for Clara. Her life was a carefully orchestrated performance of invisibility. She learned the rhythms of the office, the alliances, the rivalries, the quiet currents of fear and ambition that flowed beneath the surface of the professional gloss. Her true identity was a secret known to only one other person on earth, George Sterling, the long-suffering, fiercely loyal COO of Starlight Enterprises. Clara Vance had founded Starlight 30 years ago with a vision of creating a conglomerate of companies that were not only profitable, but also ethical and innovative. She had become a legend, a name whispered with reverence in boardrooms. But she herself was intensely private. Having stepped back from the day-to-day operations years ago to focus on her philanthropic foundation, she trusted her hand-picked CEOs to run their divisions with integrity. But the reports from Apex Marketing had become too alarming to ignore. Productivity was down. But more importantly, employee satisfaction metrics had plummeted, and turnover in the junior ranks was staggeringly high. Yet, its director, Marcus Thorne, kept posting impressive-looking profit margins. Something was wrong. The numbers weren't telling the whole story. So Clara, to George's profound dismay, had decided on her audacious, undercover mission. "Are you sure you need to be the one doing this?" Clara George's worried voice came through her discreet earpiece during her lunch break, which she took in a nearby anonymous park. "I could send in a team of auditors." "An audit team sees the books, George," Clara murmured into her phone, "watching a child chase pigeons. They don't see the soul of a company. I need to see the rot for myself before I decide where to make the cut." The rot was extensive. Marcus ruled through a combination of public humiliation and favoritism, He would praise the shoddy, sycophantic work of his favorites in team meetings, while dismissing the thoughtful contributions of quieter employees. He pitted his staff against each other, fostering a cutthroat environment where everyone was too busy protecting their own back to collaborate effectively. And he continued to use Anna as his personal punching bag. He'd accidentally spill his latte on his desk and sigh dramatically until she rushed over with paper towels. He'd give her complex travel itineraries to book at the last possible minute, then berate her when a flight was full. He saw her as a powerless, dependent old woman, and tormenting her seemed to inflate his own fragile ego. Clara absorbed every insult, every condescending remark, filing it away in the steel-trap vault of her mind. Each act of disrespect was another piece of evidence for the prosecution. It was during her menial rounds that she discovered the office's hidden gem, Lily Chen, a junior graphic designer tucked away in a small cubicle. Lily was brilliant, Clara, with her highly trained eye for design and branding, could see it instantly, while her colleagues were creating loud, derivative ads. Lily's screen was filled with elegant, emotionally intelligent concepts. Her understanding of color theory, typography, and negative space was masterful, but she was painfully shy. And in the Shark Tank Marcus had created, she was bleeding. In meetings, she would start to offer an idea, only to be spoken over by a more aggressive colleague or cut off by Marcus himself. The central focus of the office, the project that had everyone on edge, was the pitch for the Ethelred Energy account. Ethelred was the holy grail of clients, a massive, forward-thinking green energy company looking to launch a global rebranding campaign. Winning the account would mean millions in revenue and would guarantee Marcus a promotion to the executive board of Starlight Enterprises. The pressure was immense. One afternoon, Marcus gathered his senior team in the glass-walled conference room to review his core concept for the Ethelred pitch. As Anna delivered a tray of fresh coffee, she was able to watch the presentation. It was appalling. Marcus's concept was a mess of cliches. It featured aggressive, masculine imagery of lightning bolts and roaring turbines, with tone-deaf taglines like Ethelred powering your world. It completely missed the client's brand ethos, which was about sustainability, harmony, and quiet innovation. From the back of the room, Lily, who had been asked to attend to take notes, raised a tentative hand. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "I was just thinking, since Ethelred's focus is on renewable, natural energy, maybe the visual language should be more organic, more about the connection between nature and technology, rather than the force of it." Marcus turned his gaze on her, a look of pure, dismissive contempt on his face. "Lily," he said, his voice dangerously soft, "thank you for that fascinating contribution from the Art and Crafts Corner. When I want an opinion on what font to use for the legal disclaimer, I'll be sure to ask. Until then, please just stick to the notes." The room fell silent. Lily shrank back in her chair, her face burning with humiliation. Anna stood quietly by the coffee machine, her expression placid, but inside, a cold. Clear decision was made. Marcus was not just a bully, he was an idiot. He was about to run one of her most important potential accounts into the ground because of his own ego and incompetence. She looked over at the brilliant, defeated young designer. She had seen the problem. She had identified the hidden asset, and she knew that her quiet observation was about to require a more hands-on approach. The queen could not allow her kingdom to be ruined by a fool. As the deadline for the Ethelred pitch loomed, a frantic, desperate energy consumed the office. The project was a train heading for a cliff. Marcus, incapable of admitting his core concept was flawed, pushed his team to the breaking point, demanding they make his terrible ideas work through sheer force of will. Morale plummeted. The sleek office, once buzzing with ambition, now felt like a pressure cooker of anxiety and resentment. Lily Chen, meanwhile, had retreated into a world of her own during the day. She dutifully executed Marcus's commands, creating soulless graphics of lightning bolts and sterile turbines, her face a neutral mask. But at night, after the office had emptied, she would stay late, her desk lamp a single pool of light in the darkness, there for herself. She continued to build out her own vision for the Ethelred campaign. She called it symbiosis. It was a concept built on breathtaking images of nature and technology in harmony wind turbines designed to look like spiraling seashells, solar panels like the iridescent wings of a butterfly, geothermal vents powering communities with the gentle breath of the earth. It was beautiful, intelligent, and perfectly aligned with the client's ethos. She had no intention of ever showing it to Marcus. It was her sanctuary, the one place her creativity hadn't been crushed. Clara, as the ever-present Anna, saw it all. She would often forget her reading glasses or a cardigan. Returning to the office an hour after she'd left, she would see Lily hunched over her screen, lost in her work, a look of profound, lonely passion on her face. Clara saw the multi-million-dollar campaign the company was about to lose. Right there on that junior designer's monitor. The opportunity to act came unexpectedly. An email announced a surprise visit from Eleanor Vance, the Executive VP of Brand Strategy for Starlight Enterprises' entire consumer goods portfolio. Eleanor was a legend in the company, a sharp, intimidatingly intelligent woman with an impeccable eye for design and a famous intolerance for mediocrity. She was visiting the Apex office for a brief, unrelated review, but her presence was enough to send Marcus into a panic. Clara knew this was her chance. That evening, she waited until Lily had finally packed up and left for the night, leaving a few discarded printouts of her symbiosis concept by the recycling bin with the practiced, slightly bumbling air of Anna. Clara began her nightly routine of tidying up. She collected stray mugs and old newspapers. Then she picked up Lily's discarded designs. She didn't put them in the bin. Instead, she slipped them into a sleek, professional portfolio folder she had taken from the supply closet. Her final stop was the main conference room, the glass-walled fishbowl where Marcus would be meeting Eleanor the next morning, with the dutifulness of a simple assistant. She straightened the chairs and wiped down the gleaming table. Then, she performed her quiet act of sabotage. She placed the portfolio containing Lily's work on the table, but not in the center. She slid it near the edge, partially tucking it under a stack of thick, boring quarterly reports. It looked for all the world like a folder that had been accidentally left behind after a previous meeting. The next morning, Eleanor Vance arrived, 5 minutes early, as was her habit. Her assistant showed her to the conference room to wait for Marcus. Alone in the room, Eleanor's sharp, restless eyes scanned the table. They passed over the thick official reports and then snagged on the corner of the portfolio peeking out from underneath. Something about the clean, elegant font on its label caught her eye. Intrigued, she slid it out. She opened it. Marcus Thorne strode into the conference room a few minutes later, his face arranged in his best welcoming, confident smile. "Eleanor, so good to see you." He stopped dead. Eleanor Vance wasn't looking at him. She was completely engrossed in the portfolio, her expression one of intense, focused admiration. She slowly looked up from the designs, her eyes piercing. "Marcus," she said, her voice dangerously calm, "I was not aware your team was developing this symbiosis concept." She tapped a finger on one of Lily's breathtaking designs. "It's brilliant. It's exactly the kind of forward-thinking, emotionally intelligent work Starlight should be doing. Why is this the first I'm seeing of it? And why are you planning to pitch that other brutish nonsense to Ethelred when you have this?" Marcus stared at the portfolio, his mind racing. He had never seen these designs in his life. He was completely and utterly blindsided. His confident smile froze, then crumbled, replaced by a look of baffled panic. From her desk out in the main office, Anna quietly finished sorting the morning mail, the picture of harmless, mundane efficiency. The first seed of rebellion had been planted, not with a shout, but with a whisper, and it had landed in the most fertile ground imaginable. Eleanor Vance's visit left a crater in the middle of Marcus Thorne's ego. He was a man who prided himself on control, and, for the first time, a narrative had emerged that he had not written himself. He was furious, not at the quality of the symbiosis concept, but at its existence. It was a rogue variable, an act of insubordination, and he became obsessed with finding its source. He stormed through the office like a paranoid king hunting for a traitor. He held a series of tense, closed-door meetings, grilling his senior staff one by one. What is this symbiosis campaign? Who authorized it? Whose work is this? His questions were accusations. His senior team, all genuinely clueless, could only offer confused denials, which only deepened Marcus's suspicion and rage. The office, already a place of high anxiety, became a pressure cooker of fear. It didn't take him long to connect the elegant, sophisticated designs to the one person in the office with a matching aesthetic. He summoned Lily Chen to his glass-walled office. Through the clear walls, the entire office watched as Marcus stood over Lily's chair, his posture intimidating. He didn't ask. He accused. "So," he began, his voice dangerously low as he tossed the portfolio onto his desk. "It seems you've been busy with a little side project. Did you think you could go over my head? Lily, did you think you could leak this to Eleanor Vance and make me look like a fool?" Lily, who was terrified, shook her head, her eyes wide with genuine confusion and fear. "Mr. Thorne, I don't know how she saw that. I was just sketching. I threw those pages out." "Don't lie to me," he snapped, his voice rising. "This has your fingerprints all over it." Seeing her cower, Marcus's mind shifted from anger to predatory calculation. He was cornered, Eleanor, and by extension, Starlight Enterprises. now expected a brilliant campaign. His own concept was dead in the water. This was his only lifeline. He took a deep breath, his demeanor changing in an instant. He sat on the edge of his desk, adopting a tone of magnanimous, patronizing leadership. "Look, Lily," he said, his voice now smooth, "you have some interesting instincts. Raw, undeveloped, but interesting. I've been feeling for a while that our campaign needed a new direction, a breakthrough." He tapped the portfolio. "This has given me an idea. I'm going to take this raw concept of yours, and I am going to elevate it. I will shape it into something worthy of a client like Ethelred." It was a master class in intellectual theft, performed in broad daylight. He was annexing her creativity, claiming her land as his own. In the week that followed, Marcus became even more of a tyrant. He officially announced to the beleaguered team that he had formulated a new, more organic vision for the pitch. But he lacked the soul to understand Lily's work. He tried to force her elegant concepts through the clumsy filter of his own commercialism. He'd take one of her beautiful, nature-inspired images and demand she make the logo 50% bigger. He'd insist on adding loud, aggressive taglines that completely contradicted the campaign's subtle tone. The project became a Frankenstein's monster, a grotesque stitching together of her genius and his incompetence, and to cement his authority. He made Lily his specific target for public criticism. In every meeting, he would single her out. "No, Lily, that's too subtle, too weak. We're selling energy, not scented candles." He belittled her in front of her peers, a constant psychological campaign to ensure everyone knew that he was the master, and she was just the lowly apprentice. Through it all, Anna was the silent, ever-present witness from her corner desk. She saw everything. She saw Marcus copy files from Lily's computer when he thought no one was looking. She saw him practicing the presentation, taking credit for phrases and ideas Lily had timidly uttered in earlier meetings. One afternoon, she found Lily crying silently in the break room after a particularly brutal critique from Marcus. Anna approached, offering her a tissue with a grandmotherly kindness. "That's a beautiful design you're working on, dear," she said softly, nodding toward the tablet Lily was clutching. "The colors are just lovely." "He hates it," Lily whispered, her voice choked with tears. "He hates everything I do." "It's not you he hates," Anna said, her voice still soft but with an underlying firmness. "It's the talent he doesn't possess. Don't ever let a man like that dim your light. True talent is a fire. It will find its way to the surface." Later that evening, Anna stayed late again. She made a digital copy of Lily's original, untouched symbiosis concept files. Then she made copies of Marcus's subsequent, clumsy drafts, the ones filled with his oafish markups and changes. She saved them all to a small, encrypted flash drive. She now had a clear, documented timeline of his theft. As the presentation day drew near, the office was a pit of despair. The campaign was a disjointed mess, and the team was burned out. In the quiet of the empty office, Clara Vance took out her burner phone and sent a short, encrypted text to George. "The rot is deeper than we thought. He's not just a bully, he's a thief. But the patient is almost ready for surgery. Stand by." The trap was almost set. All she needed was for the king to walk onto his stage for his final, doomed performance. The morning of the Ethelred Energy presentation arrived with the grim finality of an execution day. The mood at Apex Marketing was funereal. The team moved like ghosts, their faces pale with sleeplessness and dread. They knew the campaign they were about to present was a pale, twisted mockery of a brilliant idea. It was a ship taking on water, and Marcus was about to steer it directly into a hurricane. Marcus himself, however, was a whirlwind of manufactured confidence. Dressed in a razor-sharp Italian suit and radiating an almost manic energy, he strode through the office, barking last-minute orders. He was a king preparing for his coronation, completely oblivious to the fact that his throne was made of kindling. As the designated office assistant, Anna was tasked with preparing the main boardroom. She laid out bottles of expensive, sparkling water, arranged notepads and pens with perfect symmetry, and ensured the massive presentation screen was working flawlessly. Her movements were slow, methodical, and invisible. She was simply part of the room's decor. It gave her the perfect vantage point for the drama about to unfold. The Ethelred Energy executives arrived at 10 o'clock sharp. They were not the brash, backslapping corporate types Marcus was used to. The CEO, a woman named Dr. Eris Thorne, no relation to Marcus, a fact that would soon become a source of deep irony, was sharp, thoughtful, and held a Ph.D. in environmental science. Her team was composed of equally intelligent, passionate people who cared deeply about their company's mission. They were the worst possible audience for a campaign built on bluster and stolen ideas. With everyone seated around the massive table, Marcus launched his presentation. He was, as always, a slick and polished salesman. He spoke with passion about synergy and disruption and brand activation, but the content itself was a disaster. On the giant screen, lilies beautiful, organic visuals, the wind turbines like seashells, the solar panels like butterfly wings appeared. But they were jarringly mismatched with Marcus's aggressive, focus group-tested taglines. Ethelred absolute power. Ethelred dominate your environment. The disconnect was palpable. The clients' polite smiles grew strained. Their bodies, at first open and receptive, became closed off. They began to exchange subtle, concerned glances. Dr. Thorne finally interjected, her voice quiet but incisive. "Mr. Thorne, I must confess I'm feeling a slight cognitive dissonance here. The visual language your team has developed is elegant, speaking of a symbiotic relationship with nature, but your messaging is about force, about dominance. Can you explain the strategy behind that contradiction?" Marcus, caught off guard by the direct challenge, began to flounder. "An excellent question, Dr. Thorne. It's about duality. It's about showing that Ethelred is both gentle and strong. It's a power duality matrix." He was speaking pure marketing jargon, a smoke screen of buzzwords to hide his lack of a real answer. The clients were not impressed. Another executive chimed in. "And this slide here," he said, pointing to a particularly clumsy graphic where a huge, ugly logo had been slapped over one of Lily's most delicate images. "This feels crude. It detracts from the artistry of the image." What was the thinking there? Marcus felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple. The pitch was unraveling, thread by thread. He could feel the multi-million-dollar account, his promotion, his victory, all slipping through his fingers in a desperate, craven act of self-preservation. He decided to sacrifice a pawn. "A fair point," Marcus said, forcing a chuckle. "That was an element from one of our more junior designers. A bit literal in her interpretation. I'm afraid we're still working on refining her developmental instincts." He glanced pointedly at Lily, who was sitting silently against the back wall, making her the clear, implicit target of his criticism. Lily felt the blood drain from her face. He was blaming her, in front of the client, in front of everyone. He was throwing her under the bus to save himself. Dr. Thorne's expression hardened from skepticism into a clear, cold disappointment. She looked at Marcus, then at the nervous faces of his team, then at the terrified young woman in the back. She had seen enough. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice crisp and final, "while we appreciate the effort, this was the moment, the crash, the failure, the end of his gamble." From the side of the room, Anna moved silently forward to refill Dr. Thorne's water glass. Her movements were calm, her face impassive, but her eyes, for a single, fleeting second, met Dr. Thorne's in that brief glance. A universe of understanding seemed to pass. The pitch was over. The trial was about to begin. "Mr. Thorne," Dr. Eris Thorne began, her voice crisp with finality, "while we appreciate the time you've taken." She was about to deliver the killing blow, the formal rejection that would seal Marcus's fate, but she never finished the sentence. The heavy glass doors of the conference room swung open with a soft, authoritative whoosh. Every head in the room turned. Standing in the doorway was George Sterling, the chief operating officer of the entire Starlight Enterprises conglomerate. George was a man who rarely visited the subsidiary offices. His presence alone was a significant event, a sign that something of immense importance was happening. He was an imposing figure, his face grim and serious. But it was the woman who entered behind him that silenced the room. She was no longer Anna, the mousy, invisible office assistant. The drab cardigan and sensible shoes were gone. In their place was a woman dressed in a bespoke, dark navy suit of such simple elegance and perfect tailoring that it screamed power more loudly than any designer logo. Her gray hair was styled in a chic, confident sweep back from her face. Her expression was calm, her eyes sharp and intelligent, and she carried herself with an unshakable, quiet authority that instantly commanded the room. Marcus Thorne stared, his mind struggling to process the visual disconnect. He recognized the woman's face. Of course, it was Anna, his pathetic office drone. But this was an entirely different person, a commander, a queen, a cold, terrifying premonition began to snake its way up his spine. George Sterling stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the confused faces before landing, with the weight of an anvil, on Marcus. "Dr. Thorne." "Ladies and gentlemen," George began, his voice a low baritone that cut through the tense silence. "Please accept my sincere apologies for this interruption. We at Starlight headquarters were monitoring this presentation, and it became clear that a significant clarification was in order before you made your final decision." He then turned his full attention to Marcus, whose face had begun to drain of all color. "Mr. Thorne," George said, his voice devoid of any warmth, "I realize that in your time here, You've never had the opportunity to meet our founder in person. She values her privacy. However, she has recently taken a more hands-on approach to evaluating the leadership within her divisions. He stepped to the side, gesturing with one hand toward the poised, silent woman beside him. Allow me to introduce Ms. Clara Vance, the founder, majority shareholder, and chairwoman of the board of Starlight Enterprises. The name hit the room like a shockwave. The Ethelred executives, who knew the legendary name but had never seen a photo of the reclusive founder, stared in stunned respect. The Apex marketing team gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief. But it was Marcus who had the most visceral reaction. His brain felt like it was short-circuiting. His eyes darted from the powerful, elegant woman standing beside the COO to the face of the meek, middle-aged woman he had mocked, belittled, and humiliated for months. The faces were the same. It was impossible. It was a nightmare. Anna, Clara Vance. The two identities collided in his mind with the force of a car crash. The memory of every condescending remark, every demeaning task, every public humiliation he had inflicted upon her rushed through him in a sickening, horrifying wave. The coffee. The mail. Can you handle the complexities of the new photocopier, dear? His mouth fell open, his jaw, quite literally, dropped. The carefully constructed facade of the arrogant, confident executive shattered into a million pieces, revealing the terrified, pathetic man underneath. All the color drained from his face, leaving it a waxy, sickly white. Clara Vance stepped forward. She did not look at Marcus. She did not gloat. Her power was so absolute that it required no performance. She addressed Dr. Thorne directly, her voice cool, clear, and precise. "Dr. Thorne," she said, "what you have witnessed for the last hour is not representative of the talent that exists within this firm. It is, however, a textbook example of a catastrophic failure in leadership, a failure of vision, a failure of integrity, and a failure of simple human decency." She then turned her gaze, for the first time, to the terrified young designer cowering in the back of the room. Her expression softened instantly, becoming warm and encouraging. "Lily," she said, her voice now gentle, "I believe you have something you'd like to show our guests. The real Ethelred campaign. Please, come forward." All eyes turned to Lily, who looked as if she might faint. But then she looked at Clara, at Anna, the kind woman who had told her that true talent always finds the light, and she saw the truth, empowered by the presence of the one person who had believed in her. She took a deep breath, stood up on trembling legs, and walked to the front of the room, her portfolio clutched in her hands. Marcus remained frozen, a statue of pure horror, his jaw still agape. His kingdom had not just been conquered. He had just discovered he had been spending months mocking the Empress herself. For a moment, Lily Chen looked as if she might bolt from the room. All eyes were on her, and the weight of the moment was immense. But then she looked at Clara Vance, the woman she had known as Anna, the kind assistant who had told her that true talent was a fire. She saw the unwavering belief in Clara's eyes, and it became a mirror for her own frightened, fledgling hope. She took a deep breath, walked to the head of the table on trembling legs, and opened her portfolio. As she began to speak, A transformation occurred. The timid, whispering junior designer vanished, and the passionate, brilliant artist emerged. She spoke with eloquence and deep conviction about her vision of symbiosis. She explained the philosophy behind her choices, the emotional resonance she was aiming for. She didn't just present designs, she told a story. The Ethelred executives were captivated. They leaned forward, asking sharp, insightful questions, not to challenge her, but to understand more deeply. They were no longer clients being sold to. They were collaborators in a shared vision. When Lily finished, there was a moment of stunned, appreciative silence. Dr. Eris Thorne broke it. She smiled, a broad, genuine smile of pure delight. She looked at Lily, then at Clara. "Ms. Chen," she said, her voice full of warmth and respect. That was not a pitch. That was a manifesto. It's what we've been trying to articulate ourselves for years. You don't just have the account. You have a partner in Ethelred Energy for as long as you wish. Tears of joy and relief streamed down Lily's face. The room erupted in a spontaneous burst of applause from her teammates, a genuine celebration of their colleagues' triumph. In the midst of the celebration, Clara's calm voice cut through the air. She turned her attention to the man who was still frozen in his chair, a living statue of horror. "Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice devoid of malice but heavy with the finality of a judge's sentence, effective immediately. "Your employment with Apex Marketing and all its parent and subsidiary companies is terminated." Marcus flinched as if he'd been struck. Clara continued, ticking off the reasons on her fingers as if reading from a report she had memorized. One for gross incompetence and mismanagement that nearly resulted in the loss of a multi-million-dollar account. 2. For the attempted plagiarism of a subordinate's intellectual property for your own personal gain. And 3. For cultivating a toxic work environment built on fear, disrespect, and verbal abuse, a culture that is in direct violation of the foundational principles of Starlight Enterprises. She then turned to a stunned but respected senior manager named Sarah Davis. "Ms. Davis, congratulations on your promotion to interim director. Your first official task is to work with Ms. Chen to assemble her dream team to execute this brilliant campaign. Spare no expense." Finally, Clara addressed the entire shell-shocked team. "Let me be perfectly clear," she said, her voice resonating with a power they had never heard before. "The era of fear at this company is over. As of today, we are instituting a new mentorship program, a new bonus structure that rewards collaboration, and a direct, anonymous channel to my personal office for any employee to report grievances without fear of reprisal. We are going to build a place where talent is nurtured, not stolen, where respect is the baseline, not the exception." 3 months later, the Apex Marketing Office was unrecognizable, the tense, competitive silence had been replaced by a vibrant hum of creative energy. People were laughing in the hallways. Teams were collaborating openly, their whiteboards filled with exciting, innovative ideas. Lily Chen, now a confident and respected art director, was leading the Ethelred campaign to stunning success, winning industry awards and the deep gratitude of the client. Sarah Davis proved to be a compassionate and effective leader, promoting a culture of trust and empowerment. Marcus Thorne was gone, a forgotten cautionary tale whispered among the new hires. Clara Vance, her undercover mission complete, had returned to her role as the quiet, guiding force behind the Starlight Empire. But once a month, she would visit the Apex office, walking the floors not as a ghost, but as a beloved leader. She would stop by Lily's desk to admire her latest work or chat with junior employees in the pantry, listening to their ideas. One afternoon, she stood by the window in her old corner office, now occupied by the new director. She looked out at the thriving, happy, and productive company below. She had proven her point. True leadership wasn't about intimidation or a fancy title. It was about seeing the value in every single person, from the boardroom to the mailroom. It was about understanding that to build a strong kingdom, the ruler's most important job is to ensure that every person within it has the chance to shine. What an amazing story about true leadership and hidden identities. If you were cheering for Clara and Lily, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more inspiring stories. We love hearing from you, so tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Thank you for being part of our community. We'll see you in the next one.